Hello and welcome to Wednesday Tie-Dye podcast. A lacklustre England lose, not ideal preparation for the Euros. Are you worried? Feels very much Cisco pre-season last year to me, and I hope I'm very wrong. It's Sunday evening as we record this, 7 days from our opening game of Euro 2024 as we take on Serbia. Don't worry, it's not all going to be England chat. We are going to be discussing Will Volks, Jan Paveda, and a new name to us, but not to Danny, in Jan Valery. All the jokes have already been done, so I'll not do them again. Hello and welcome to Wednesday Tie-Dye Podcast. I'm James Mappin. Alongside me is Matt Johnson. As always, Matt, before we get into the Wednesday news and England squad, etc., how are you, mate? All good?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Very, very lazy weekend here. It's crap when there's no football on, and you actually have to spend time with people you love.
Yeah, Saturdays, you have to plan things on a Saturday, which normally just get planned for you, don't they? It's normally, Hillsborough or some away day, especially for you anyway. But yeah, I think I've seen about 97% of the family today and just been dashing all over the show. But yeah, it's things you've got to do, innit? Might not want to, but
Disney Plus has taken an absolute hammering in this household.
Mate, I'm subscribed to all of them: Disney Plus, Netflix, I don't know, Bravo, Watch TV, whatever. I don't know, whatever they're called. There's loads of them. Let's get straight into it then. Let's start off with some Wednesday-related stuff. One thing that has just landed, which we were just laughing about before. Paul Mullin, £4.5 million bid. I mean, there needs to be. I know they're quite creative with these rumours, but come on. I mean, look, if that happens, we'll have some serious egg on his face. I don't for 1 minute think it is, but yeah, that's not really what we want, is it? To be fair.
I tell you what, if you roll this back 2 years, Jesus Christ, I'd have taken that. Absolutely. If you'd have rolled that back 2 years to when we were in League One and Paul Mullin was linked with us just before he went to Wrexham, I would have 100% taken that. Now, God no. I always think it's really interesting at this time of year because you can almost chart when GCSEs finish and bullshit rumours start. Like it's almost like it's every 16-year-old in the country's gone, right, now that's out of the way, who can I wind up? And it was when that was dropped, I just thought, the striker I can deal with being linked, the fee of 4.5 million is just ridiculous.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, to be fair, like, he has got a decent record, hasn't he? 26 goals in the National League, 38 goals in the same league the season after when they got promoted, 24 goals in 38 league appearances last season, eight assists as well. Like, the numbers are decent, but yeah, like I don't see how that sort of player is going to fit in a Wednesday side, in a Danny Röhl side as well, and the fact that having to pay 4.5 million for someone who, one, is 29 years old. If he was 22, I might think, wait a minute, like, he's coming up through the ranks here. He's seeing a lot of promise. 29 years old, a big fee, because that's kind of going back to what we were doing back, 2015, 2016 when Chansiri first came in, weren't it? Paying a lot of money for someone that's got very little or next to nothing in terms of a resale value.
Yeah, and I don't mind it if you've got a player who's out of contract like that. That's absolutely fine, and you can go and splash the wages on it because it is almost like a really low-risk gamble. But if you're asking somebody to go and spend 4.5 million on a player, that's not the type of player that you should be spending that type of money on, is the honest answer. It just feels way too steep for that type of player. But again, total nonsense, I would imagine, in terms of people just stirring up rumours. It would be really interesting to see how long Paul Mullin's got left on his Wrexham deal, to see whether that's just an agent trying to get his name out there to haggle for a higher fee, or since the promotion trying to renegotiate a contract. Can't see it myself.
Yeah, I can't. Like I said, we will get massive egg on his face if it does happen.
Cut to Super Paul Mullin in September, bagging 3. Perfect. Yeah. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, I mean, I've always rated him. Watched him on Disney Plus for years. We were talking about Disney Plus before. But yeah, no, not for me.
Yeah, Jordan's just said I'd rather spend £4.5 million on Ugbo. I mean, yeah, I have to agree on that one. And I think you would probably get Ugbo for that sort of money. I mean, I don't know what his value is and what the sort of asking price is. But yeah, 100%. If we've got that sort of money, I can think of probably 100 other places that we could rather spend it than buying Paul Mullin, if you know what I mean. It just seems too much of a gamble, and let's stick to the age of the squad is already quite high anyway. Let's stick to signing these young players. Let's get that age down. Let's get some actual value to the squad. Look, I don't think next season's a season where it's not a moving season, if you know what I mean. It's not like a season where we're looking to get promoted or anything like that. If we're being realistic, we spoke about that last week. Let's move away from that one. One player who might be going in the opposite direction and leaving Sheffield Wednesday is Will Vaulks. I'm surprised at this, if I'm honest. I thought that he was probably going to be the next one in terms of players that's going to sign a contract. Barry Bannon did it. Liam Palmer signed a contract on the same day. I thought Will Vaulks was going to be the next one, but it looks like like I said, he could be on his way to Oxford, obviously stalling on his deal. What do you make to that, Matt?
I think it depends on what we've offered him in terms of length of contract. If you're going off anything to do with Bannon and Palmer, let's say it's a year by all accounts that those two players have been offered and have signed. If you Will Vaulks, are you looking for a little bit more security than that with his age profile, perhaps? Are you looking for more guaranteed first-team football? Because, when Danny Röhl first came in, he had to work very hard, Will Vaulks, bide his time and wait his chance to get an opportunity. Would I be sad to see him go? Yes. Do I think that he is replaceable? Yeah, absolutely. He's a really good player, and he's very, very important, and he does all of the dirty work, and he does all of that nasty side of the game, which I really appreciate, slowing things down, taking the sting out of it, riling up opposition players. He does all of that brilliantly. But I would suggest that there are players who you could go out there and sign for that. The luxury of keeping Will Vaulks, I suppose, is that he already knows the system, he knows the players, and we know that he fits into that mould. But that doesn't mean that his quality is irreplaceable. Personally, if you were to go out and sign a player who's 5 years younger but does exactly the same job, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, for me, I think you bang on it. Like in terms of we don't know how much is being offered or anything like that, but the fact that he hasn't signed it can only be down to one thing really. If he's been offered 2 years or decent money, then yeah, I can't see a reason why he wouldn't sign it. I mentioned on Twitter about it's probably down to agreed playing time. Someone asked the question, how do you know it's playing time? And the answer is I don't, but someone's going to be offered less money based on that they're not going to be playing as much. If someone's coming in and they're going to be the star player, you can throw some money in because they're going to be on the pitch. That's when that's where the points are won, on the pitch. They're not won off the bench. So your squad players naturally will be on less money, and I feel like that's what's happened. Again, we're talking about age. He's 30. Will be 31. In a couple of months' time, September. I know players do play until they're well into the 30s, as we've seen. But if Danny Röhl is trying to reduce that age of the squad and he has got a replacement lined up, then we've got to trust him really. And I think that my only worry is it's another player that we have to replace. We've already spoke about how many players are being released, the fact that we have currently only got one central midfielder at the moment. There's no Backinson, there's no obviously if Will Vaulks goes, he's not there. George Byers isn't there either. Momo Diaby obviously was on loan. All them players are no longer here. We've just got Barry Bannon playing in the middle. So yes, I'm probably confident that we can sign many players, and it's so early days. I don't think we've even signed anyone by this point. I think we'd only just got rid of his manager, haven't we, or not even got rid of him yet by this time last season. So a lot can change, and obviously I know that, but it's just that you do need that certainty, and like you mentioned, what you get with Will Vaulks. We've got to bring someone else in to buy into what Danny Röhl's trying to do, and yeah, I am surprised. I thought that he would be the next person to sign a new contract. Just to throw a devil's advocate in there, Will Vaulks got better as the season went on. We mentioned that Danny Röhl kind of relaxed some of his principles as the season went on. I don't know whether that's a sign that he can play he can't necessarily play the way that Danny Reel wants him to play, but he can play a different way that we kind of finished up playing. Because I think it's going to be, I feel we're going to play a lot different to how we finished last season. I feel like we're going to be playing the football that he tried to implement when he first came in, Danny Reel.
Yeah, Hull at home is the blueprint, really, of how this manager would like to play, I would assume. Hull at home was front foot pressing, really high intensity. When we did get the ball, we looked to break very quickly. I mean, that would be what I would anticipate that our style of football looks more than what we've saw over the back end of the season. My question, James, I suppose, to yourself was, would you, if you were Will Vaulks, as you said, with all of that there, 30-31, say Oxford are offering you a 2-year deal on exactly the same money but guaranteed playing time, because he will play for them in centre midfield. He will play for them, and their style of football is going to be a lot more suited to his game. It's not going to be as free-flowing. It's not going to be as pretty. It's not going to be as open. It is going to be sit in, break things up, break the game down, allow him to dictate it. If you were him, would you go? Like, I mean, I thought about it a lot from that perspective today, and I thought, unless there's something really certain about, like, my family, like being settled or whatever, I'd just put my hands up and just say, I'm going to want to play for the next 2 years, and there I'm guaranteed to at least have the opportunity to start. I'll get a 6 months grace period, where at Wednesday, because we know what we get from him and Danny knows what he gets from him, I get the opinion that if he were to bring in, let's say, 2 other midfielders, they're going to be above him before. It's not his shirt to lose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he won Fans Player of the Year, but that doesn't guarantee you a place next season, as we're clearly finding out. I mean, he spent, 3 years at Rotherham. Then obviously went to Cardiff, spent 3 years there. I don't know what he did in terms of whether he moved or not. I mean, he was in Scotland before he went to Rotherham. So it's not, and he's been here, that was his second season. Was it his second season? It was second season with us. So it's not like he's been here 7 or 8 years and he's like a Barry Bannon. He's been here for donkeys. He's not really got, any sort of allegiance to us, really, when you think about it. It's not the team that he's played the longest for in his career. Obviously, I'm sure he loves it here, and he's got some fantastic memories, and some bad ones, I'm sure he would have liked that goal to have stood at Wembley against Barnsley. I'm not saying that's a bad memory, but you know what I mean. Money talks at the end of the day. He could have a really bad injury, in this one season that he has at Sheffield Wednesday, and then that could be it. His career is over. Someone's offered him 2 years. We don't know if it, hypothetically speaking, they might be offering him more money. Sometimes you've got to put yourself in someone else's shoes. I know it's different with footballers; they do move around a hell of a lot. People don't necessarily move around as much with the jobs. They're not all like yourself, Matt. But if someone has said to you, I'm going to, let's just say I'm going to double your wage, but you've got to move, 50 mile north or something. You're like, wait a minute, double my wage? Yes, I will. Well, you might not necessarily say yes straight away, but you're certainly going to think about it, and it does make a massive difference. So, yeah,
sorry, James, sorry to cut in. It's not me saying that he's a terrible player. It's not me saying that he couldn't do a really, really good job for us. It's not any of that. It's more to do with, the more I thought about it, kind of like over the course of today, obviously knowing that we were going to be chatting about him later on today, I did think, if I were in his position, what would I do? And if I'm guaranteed a fresh start, game time, in a side that is going to play football that's probably more suited to me, because I mean, I always think with Will Vaulks, he probably quite likes playing the passing football and all the rest of it, but actually really enjoys a battle. He really enjoys scrapping. He really enjoys all that horrible side to the game. And like he openly, he's quite humble in interviews in terms of how he talks about it. He says, well, if that's my role within a side, I'm more than happy to take it on and stuff like that. I actually think that's probably him, behind the scenes being like, I'm happy to just kick people and wind people up, because he'll do it in a game. I mean, we saw it in League One. We'd do it in a game where he was winning 4-0. Like, he'd still be doing exactly the same thing as if we were, chasing a game. So it was just, again, it's not me trying to say that he's a terrible player, let's get him out. He's not my type of a centre midfielder, But I appreciate the job that you need, and you do need a player like him in your centre midfield option or your rotation to be able to play. I just thought, if you're guaranteed first team game time at a side that's just been newly promoted, and you get a 2-year guarantee, why not? Why wouldn't you go?
Yeah, and it's always very difficult for us talking about it when we don't know what the replacement's going to be. What if the replacement's Barry Bannon Mark II?
Yeah.
In terms of a player that's going to stay here forever, we absolutely love him, and it's all singing, all dancing. Like, but then again, if the replacement is Tyreek Backinson Mark II, then I'll be really, really worried. But obviously we can't, we don't know, so we've no idea. One player that we have been quite heavily linked with really is Jan Valery from Angers, a French League 2 side. They have just been promoted to Ligue 1, the top French division. He was at Southampton in his youth, made his debut for Southampton whilst Danny Rill was there, obviously as assistant to Hassan Hootel. It's been one that's been reported by L'Equipe in France. I don't know if I might have done that some disservice there. Obviously, they're L'Equipe. Yes, there we go. That's all. I thought I might have pronounced that wrong. That's the Yorkshire version, that one. And they're quite an established media outlet over there as well for people that don't know. So I think there is some weight behind it. Apparently, personal terms have been agreed, but still yet to sort out something with the club. I can't say I know much about Jan Valery, Matt, to be perfectly honest.
No, when reading up on him, obviously, because when you get linked to these players, you then immediately spend half an hour down a wormhole, kind of like everything about them, and then by the end of it, you come off going, it'd be a great signing. He seemed to have a really good breakthrough season at Southampton. I think there was stuff to do with an injury in his second season, and they brought in Carl Walker-Peters, and he struggled to find his feet and get back in. I won't comment on the stuff that has been mentioned surrounding his personal life outside of football, because there has been some really quite nasty stuff that has been said about it, and I don't know the validity of it. I don't know anything about it. The only thing that I've seen is stuff to do with Facebook statements and stuff like that, which I don't think you can really ever trust the validity of. The one thing that I would say on that matter is people who are using it from point scoring from both our side of the city and the other side of the city, all of that shit needs to stop, like right now, and that needs to be cut dead in its tracks, because that is the nature and the manner of what people are talking about is absolutely horrible. And using it for point scoring over because one team plays in blue and white and one team plays in red and white just needs to be cut dead in the water now.
Yeah,
he's clearly a good player. He's clearly a very good player. He is clearly a talented footballer who is finding his way back. Where I think we sit in pole position on this, if they are willing to sell him to us, is that Danny Roll was there at Southampton when he had his chance and he had his opportunity, and he thinks very highly of the manager. This is where we may see a number of players across continental Europe who have worked with the manager throughout his coaching career. This may be an opportunity where these type of players go, oh no, I'll come and play for you. Absolutely. The age profile is brilliant. The only thing that is slightly questionable is the position that he's playing in.
Yes.
Because I am thinking we don't necessarily need that side. Can we plug the other one first?
Yeah, Jordan's said, does Valery get in over Valentin? He don't think so. And yeah, like you bang on the money there, Jordan said it right on cue. Because, yeah, the right-hand side, there's Valentin, Palmer that plays down that side. Iorfa can play down that side as well. And yeah, you just cast your eye over to the other side and you're thinking, we've just got Marvin Johnson there at the moment. Obviously, Reece James didn't get a look in. Akin Firmino isn't a left back. He isn't a left centre half. He can play there, but he can't play left back. Certainly not for a long sustained period of time anyway. So yeah, I agree. I mean, he can play right side of midfield, but he's predominantly a right back. He has played centre back a few times as well. I'm obviously talking about Valery here. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But one thing that is quite when you look at the players that we do get linked with, just on other players that get linked with other managers, how often there's always a link there. There's always a link with, had him at insert club here, and there might be a break of a couple of clubs, but then they kind of come back to that manager again, and you look at the Ben Hamer one. Chris Powell got promoted. He got promoted with Charlton when Chris Powell was the manager. Again, perfect link. You can see why we're going in for these sort of plays, and it happens. It happens all the time. Obviously we'll have to wait to see on this one. I believe he's not out of contract either. So again, it's another one where we're going to have to be paying some sort of money to bring him in. Which again, all these players that we're linked with seem to have these price tags on them. Ike Ogbo is another one. Valerie, this one, Paul Mullin.
But also you're not going to pay for all of them. Like we can't. We simply cannot afford to pay for all of them. The fees that are being touted and the fees that are being talked about at the minute are all roughly around about the anywhere between 2 to 5 million mark in players. We aren't going to go out and sign 3 of those players. We can't. We physically cannot afford to. Whether that's to do with whether the chairman's skin or whether there's financial investment, we can't do that because we'll push ourselves over the profit and sustainability rules. We simply will not do that. So
Agreed.
It might be one of them, but it ain't going to be all of them.
Yeah, well, one player that we don't have to pay anything for is Jan Poveda. He has now officially been released by Leeds, which quite a lot of people were thinking, Leeds have not got promoted, they might keep him and this, that and the other. Obviously, they know they've got to sell quite a lot of players and everything else. Clearly, they obviously don't see anything with Jan Poveda in their future, which is great news for us. Obviously, we need to sort out wages and things like that. If to bring him in, would you break the bank to bring Jan Poveda in? Would you kind of? I don't know what sort of money he was on at Leeds. I don't know what sort of money he's going to be wanting. But a player of his sort of calibre, would be able to attract a decent sort of wage. Would you do all you can to bring him in?
This is going to come as no surprise, James. Yes, I would. The reason being is his age profile, because of the type of footballer and the, for lack of a better word, hype that surrounds him. If he has a good 12 months with us, if we need to sell him, we can. You can put him on to a higher wage than you'd feel comfortable with, and let's say he has a really good 12 months or a good season for us, there'll be suitors for him in the summer. There's no doubt about that. If you think about the level of interest in the clubs that he's either getting linked with or his agents linking them with now, it's us, Luton, West Brom. Now, whatever you think about Luton in terms of club size, they've just come down from the Premier League. He would be an ideal replacement for Ross Barkley, who they're going to lose. He could almost go and fit into that position. Very different player to Ross Barkley, but could comfortably go in and play in that side. You look at West Brom, the thing that I thought about them at Hillsborough that they were lacking after they went 3-0 down and started playing was creativity off the right. The first half was, they didn't have a forward, which is a main problem, but they have got 2 players who are coming back. But they do need some more creativity in those wide areas. Now, Mikey Johnston's gone back to Celtic. He goes in there and immediately goes on to become one of the better players in the division. He comes to us, he does exactly the same. He is somebody who, if you've got the opportunity to do so and you've got a head start on everybody because he's been here since the end of the season, you go out and you spend the money on that type of a player because people will see that as a statement of intent and want to come back or want to come to the club.
Yeah, you always have your star players in your squad, and he could be that star player that we need. That bit of, we saw already what he can do with the ball. The ball sticks to him like a piece of shit to paper. Do you know what I mean? He's just technically he's just such a good footballer. Again, surprised that he didn't manage to bag a goal whilst he was with us. Obviously, the fact that he picked up an injury, and we perhaps rushed him back a little bit too early, is a little bit of a concern that we have. But then again, players have injuries. I think we have to kind of get that out of his head that everyone goes, oh, bad injury record, yeah, we'll sign him. But most players have probably been injured at some point. He didn't do his ACL, did he? Do you know what I mean? It's not like.
And also, it's not necessarily his fault. Look at our sparkling injury record at Hillsborough. It's not necessarily his fault, is it?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be interesting to see whether we do bring him in. I think the fact that he was here last season massively helps us. He's gonna know exactly what Danny Will's wanting him to do. I mean, they might have even spoken when he was here, where they might have already spoken to him and kind of teed something up already. He might have already known he were going to leave Leeds at the end of the season. We don't know all of this. There's still, he's probably still on holiday. Things probably aren't quite happened yet. But yeah, Jan Poveda signing for Sheffield Wednesday would just be a fantastic signing for me. And it's one that would make absolute perfect sense. Just slightly behind the James Beadle one coming on loan for a second season. I think when you look at that's certainly not a silly signing. Right, let's switch then and let's talk a little bit about England. Of course, the Euros kicking off in 7 days' time for us as we sit down to record. The Euros gets underway on Friday. It's Scotland against Germany, isn't it?
Scotland, Germany, yeah.
On Friday night. Do you always get excited for the big tournaments, Matt?
Yeah, any football tournament where you've got football from about 2 PM all the way through until midnight is great by me. I really enjoy anything to do with Euros, World Cup, anything like that. But I will preface all of that by saying I am not the biggest England fan. So if you are anticipating real patriotism on this pod, I am really sorry to everybody who is there. I'm really not a huge, massive England supporter. Like, you won't see me with a flag outside my house and in fan parks up and down the country screaming Vindaloo. Like, you won't find that. I like watching this. I sound so bearded football hipster here. I'm very much looking forward to all of the random games that turn into absolute crackers towards the end of the groups. Like your Serbia versus Albania or whatever, which turns into like a 5-4 at like a 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's 100% those afternoon games that you just put on because it's just on whilst you're working, and it feels quite naughty that you're watching football when you shouldn't be. 100% agree with that one. I think I'm very similar to yourself in that. Yes, I'm an England fan. I will watch every single England game that's on. The friendlies, not that bothered about, just because it's just because we never play our strongest team. It's always like all this tinkering and stuff, and it's just absolutely pointless. You lose and it don't matter. You win and it also doesn't matter either. You're not allowed to be excited when you win a friendly, and neither are you allowed to be really pissed off if you lose one, a la Friday that's just gone, losing to Iceland. But yeah, I'm just one of those that it just grows and grows as the tournament goes on. I think also as well, the fact that Sheffield Wednesday aren't in the Prem, we're not kind of around these players that are playing in the England setup. So yeah, you can watch Match of the Day if you're someone that can spend all your weekends watching all the football that's available in the Premier League. Then you might see more of these sorts of players. But I'm always a little bit removed from it all. So it's sometimes a little bit difficult. But yeah, I mean, do you have we got a chance? I mean, the bookies seem to think so, don't they, Matt?
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly strong Euros in terms of your traditional strength and European nations who are going to be there. France are the people who are going to win it. Like, it's France and then a large gap to everybody else. My opinion, I think England will get to the semi-finals and will go out in the semi-finals. I mean, they could quite comfortably get to the final. I just don't see anybody beating France is the honest answer. I think France, Portugal, England, Spain, Germany toss up really for those kind of like 4, 5, 6 nations. I don't think Italy have got anywhere near the strength that they had at the last Euros. And then after that, it's pretty much of a muchness unless somebody can pull something out of the fire, really.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the squad then. We'll go through it, goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and the forwards. Goalkeepers, Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford and Aaron Ramsdale. I always feel England goalkeepers were lacking somewhat. I feel like ever since, I dare say David Seaman, who obviously were a great goalkeeper.
I thought you were about to say Chris Wood then.
yeah, ever since Chris Wood. I think ever since David Seaman, we've always kind of, I don't think we've ever had like world-class goalkeeper. I'm not saying that David Seaman was world class either, but I think certainly one as a youngster when I was growing up, he was the goalkeeper, so maybe I just kind of looked up to him. Very much like in the same ilk of Kevin Pressman, really. As I look up to him, when you talk about goalkeepers, he's always one that sticks out for me. I just look and I think, Pickford, yes, he's a good goalkeeper at Everton. I mean, the ones we've picked, we have to pick some goalkeepers, don't we? It's just, I feel like as a nation, we don't really tend to have top quality goalkeepers. The fact that we're picking a goalkeeper that's playing for a team that nearly got relegated, says something, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, we haven't produced an outstanding goalkeeper for, again, I would agree with you, probably since David Seaman. For me, Jordan Pickford is the obvious choice out of the three who've been chosen. I think, my personal opinion, I think Ramsdale is very lucky to be at Arsenal. This isn't just because of his connections over the other side of the city. I personally feel Ramsdale is a bottom-end Premier League Championship goalkeeper. I think there's not really much of a difference between himself and James Trafford. If you look at when Ramsdale got the move to Arsenal, it was just after Sheffield United had been relegated. Was it Bournemouth? Bournemouth had just been relegated. Was it
yes.
Bournemouth or Sheffield United, one of the two. They'd just been relegated. He got a move from there directly to Arsenal. Ended up playing for a season. They then got a grown-up in the room in David Raya, and he's won Golden Glove and been one of their better players over the course of the season. He will need a move before the end of the year. I cannot imagine there is a long list and line of clubs in that top 6, top 8 who are desperate to have him. Dean Henderson, very good goalkeeper again. Irrespective again what the other side of the city, very good goalkeeper, but Crystal Palace is his level. And then the only one who's obviously missed out there is Nick Pope through. Is he injured? I think he's injured. Nick Pope. Nick Pope would be the other one who I think would probably slot in above the two that I've just mentioned. But out of the three that are taken, Jordan Pickford, get the rave on, has to play. If he doesn't play, there is a significant drop off, I think, into the two keepers who are there. But I agree with you. I don't think there is a standout world class goalkeeper in that midst.
Yeah, we're talking about the quality in the England setup and England side. I just feel like defensively, I've obviously not even got onto the defenders yet, but goalkeeper being a big part of that as well. It's just not one that I feel like, we've got a fantastic goalkeeper in there. I mean, Pickford's, has a mistake in him as well. He's obviously clearly in there because he's, Henderson's played a lot of football, but like you said, that's probably his level. Pickford's been in the England setup for quite a while now, and he's played regular Premier League football this season. Played pretty much probably every game this season that's just gone by. So
he also does make big and important saves for Everton. Like, I know he's at a club down the bottom, but he does make big and important saves, and he does win them points single-handedly on his own. You would argue the other side of that, Ramsdale doesn't. You would argue Dean Henderson currently isn't doing enough of that. I would argue without Jordan Pickford, Everton potentially go down because of how vital and how important he has been in some of those games. The fact that when people talk about goalkeepers is they go, oh yeah, but he drops a clanger. Every single one of them does.
Yeah.
That is the nature of being a goalkeeper. You make a mistake, it's a goal. And if you make a mistake and it's not covered by somebody else on the line, it always looks far worse than it does when it's just kind of like, when it's a centre half who makes a mistake and then the keeper bails you out.
Yeah. Moving on to the defence then, I'll just read the names out. We've got Lewis Dunk, Joe Gomez, Mark Gahey, Ezri Konsa, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker. Very much, experienced couple, 4 or 5 players, and then very much an inexperienced defence as well. Lewis Dunk obviously is an experienced player, but when it comes to the international setup, correct me if I'm wrong, first tournament for him. I think it's Joe Gomez's first tournament as well. Mark Gahey, Ezri Konsa, all debutants, and there's quite a lot in this squad as well. When I've been looking through, like when you look at the experience and things, there's not a great deal of it, which could be a good thing. No fear and all that. Who's the one that kind of stands out for you in that as one that you kind of really excited to see in that defence? Because for me, there's not many.
I do like Mark Gahey at Palace. I was baffled to see Branthwaite drop out, and also baffled to see that Fikayo Tomori is nowhere near this squad. That is absolutely mental that he plays at AC Milan, which is stereotypically and still to this day traditionally a defend first league, and your defenders have to be world class, and he is outstanding. I know
26 appearances in the Serie A this season as well, Tomori.
Yeah, he's been brilliant, and I look at Ezri Konsa, had a wonderful season with Aston Villa, really, really good season with Aston Villa, but I'm not entirely sure that he is of an international calibre, especially for a side that are going for the tournament. Should he be playing international football? Yes, absolutely. Should he be playing for a side that are looking to potentially win a tournament? No, and I know he's a squad player. I am, again, a really big fan of John Stones, but he's out of form. He can't get in the City team. He's really struggled over the course of the season. He looked all at sea for the goal on Friday night. Kyle Walker is Kyle Walker in terms of it doesn't really matter how old he gets. Kyle Walker seems to just get better with age. Kieran Trippier is the one that worries me. He's got great delivery from dead balls, but he has dropped off significantly this year at Newcastle to how he was the previous season, where he came back from Atletico Madrid and had loads of critical acclaim. He's not been the same player this year.
The big worry is the left hand side, though, isn't it? The fact that we haven't got, Luke Shaw's not fit. I don't think he's going to be available for the first 2 games. So we're taking a player that isn't fit. I'm correct me if I'm wrong. I think Branthwaite plays on that side, or can play that side, yeah. So the fact that it's just crazy to me. I said this to you the other day. It feels very much this squad feels. If you score 1 goal, we're going to score 2. If you score 3, we'll score 4. Yeah. Just in terms of probably accepting that we're going to concede a few goals, but we're going to score a load. My only worry is that when you look at some of the games that they've played in the run up to it, it hasn't really been like that. It's been really cagey affairs. Losing. I know obviously it wasn't all the, it wasn't the first team that played on Friday, but still, you still look at these players need to be drawn upon or can be drawn upon at some point to do something, and they just haven't. So I'm just hoping that's the way that we're going to play, just based on what we've kind of announced in the squad.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It does look a side which is very top heavy, and you would have to think that is the natural course of progression for the tactics. Do you know what? The high likelihood is in the latter rounds and the latter stages of this competition we are going to concede, so we just need to go out there and really throw ourselves forward and throw caution to the wind. I think you'd probably get a lot of people go back to that kind of 2018 feel-good factor where it seemed every beer garden was full to the rafters for every England game, and there was, everybody was kind of like watching that Croatia game and watching Kieran Trippier's free kick rattling, everybody had their hearts broken. It kind of feels we need to go a bit towards that kind of like that feeling of like the, again, vibes of that tournament. The problem is international football is not played on let's all chuck everything forward. International football is, I would argue, tactically more shifting sides about and moving and manipulation of squads than any level of football that is played. I don't think it's as good as Champions League football when you watch it, but the level of tactical nous that you have to play international football. Like I was listening to something after the game on Friday, and they were talking about the fact that actually they didn't feel that England had played too bad. What they needed to do was keep moving Iceland about side to side over and over and wait for the gap. And I was thinking, I must be watching a different game here. Because to me, that is not what I would like to see, and it's not what I enjoy watching. It's definitely not what I watch on a weekly basis. Yeah. But I understand most international games that you watch are like that until they get into knockout stages of tournaments where it is just manipulation of teams and can you wear the other opposition down?
That's it. We're kind of a victim of our own success. Well, I say the word success loosely because we haven't had a lot of it, but in terms of, being a nation that's going to be well up there, and seen as a top nation, fantastic players. The vast majority of the games that we have, teams will just be happy to come away with a draw. It's like they play for the draw, they might get a smash and grab win. Two of the 3 games that we're going to play, in the group stage will be like that. Serbia and Slovenia will be exactly like that, trying to wear them down. Denmark, you'd like to think will probably try and give us a decent game, and probably almost fancy the chances, but certainly it wouldn't be a surprise to them if they could turn us over, if you know what I mean. And I think that's probably why international football isn't great, like to watch as a spectacle. They tried it with the Nations League, haven't they? Which, as much as people don't like that, fair play for actually recognising that pointless games against pointless nations are just exactly that, pointless. So but again, perhaps needs a bit of tweaking. Obviously, no Harry Maguire. Apparently, he's injured. Not sure about that, whether he's injured or not, or whether it's just licking his wounds after not being picked. Let's say that he is injured for a second, then, but I'm not sure whether Southgate would have took him or not. I don't know whether it's just it would have been a point of a lot of people have given him a lot of stick. He hasn't played great for his club, and he has mentioned a few times, Southgate, that he's trying to pick people on based on their form, and he hasn't been picking Maguire on his form in recent times, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think alongside, I know we'll come on to them, but I think alongside the decisions that he's made I personally feel Maguire probably would have played just because of how short we are at the back, in terms of if you're not going to take Branthwaite, who is a similar-ish player, probably a little bit more cultured than Maguire, but a similar-ish style centre-back. I think if you then look into the midfield, he has gone with players who are out of form, not going, in terms of, and I know we'll come on to them, Maddison and Grealish. Irrespective of their qualities, they are not in form, and the players who have been picked ahead of them are in form. Why? Because from midfield upwards, we have a wealth of talent currently in the England team. The one thing that I would say on that is a wealth of talent, and they all play in incredibly different systems. And I know that is, that happens for every single nation. They all play for different teams. But if you look at the top end of the Premier League, aside from Manchester United and Arsenal, it's very rare that teams play a similar brand of football. They all play a really, really different style of football to try and get results. Like there's not like a uniformed way, like where, say for argument's sake, if you watch Spanish football or you watch Italian football, there is a more uniformed way of how to go about gaining points if you're in the top half of the table to the bottom half of the table.
Yeah.
The Premier League used to be like that, but one of the reasons why people talk about, being so keen on the Premier League nowadays is because it is anybody can go to anybody and beat anyone aside from Manchester City. I think that is something that must be from a manager's perspective, and I know Southgate gets a lot of stick. I'm nowhere near as emotionally invested in it as some other people, so I mean, I'd judge it a little bit with less emotion. I would kind of sit there and think, I think any manager's going to struggle to get the best out of it because they have such little time to work with them, and there's not that cohesive unit, and it's not been building for years through youth setups. I suppose Southgate's tried to level that in. I mean, if you look at our midfield options, they all play in such wildly different systems.
Yeah,
like our midfield options are crazy, but they're all so different.
And as well, I think another thing that stands out, obviously Palace are the side that have got the most, represented players in 4. So of a 26-man squad, 4 is the most. That to me, that sound, you'd kind of expect it to be maybe 5 or 6 from one club. The fact that these, there must be only 3 Man City players, who would that be? Stones, Walker, and Foden are the 3 City players. So then put them up with 3 Arsenal players, 3 Chelsea players. Like you've said, it is all wildly different, and I think you can see that on the pitch sometimes. You're kind of not really sure what they should be doing. So they just go backwards and kind of retain possession. And also as well, some of the players that are from these top sides, because you look at the top, and yes, there is some good English players at your likes of Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, etc. But it's not like 5 or 6 top class players. It's not all English. It's very much in the Premier League, players from all over the world. And I think it's something for another time, I guess. But I think one thing that I think really goes against us as a nation is the fact that the FA and the Premier League are 2 total separate entities. I don't know what it's like in any other country. I don't know what it's like in Italy or France or anything like that. I don't know who runs them top leagues, but I do know that certain leagues have rules in place where there's got to be a certain number of homegrown players, and it's quite a high number as well. obviously we don't have anything like that, or it's certainly not a noticeable number anyway. And I feel that is a detriment to us, really, because the Premier League have no interest in international football whatsoever.
No. And to be fair, nor should they. Like, their sole goal and their sole purpose is marketing their product to become the best and most watched league in the world, to drive the most money into it, to get the best players playing in it. They should, from a business model perspective, from an ethical standpoint, of course they should care about the English game. Of course they should, but they don't. And anybody with a set of eyes and half a brain can see that that's never been the case. When the Premier League started, it might have been with this kind of like rose-tinted spectacles about, this was going to be better for everybody and it was going to grow the game not only in this country. But once you started letting states own football teams, it went from being about, let's, trickle down some money so it can get to grassroots football, to how much money can we get into this and how much can individuals make on their bonus checks. It's one of the reasons why I suppose, I feel so disconnected with it, because as you mentioned right at the top of this, the players who we're watching are so far removed from the players who we watch week in, week out. Like, I mean, I think back to one of the last players that I saw on this list live and in the flesh, Adam Wharton and Jude Bellingham, both of whom, Jude Bellingham, the last time I saw him was at St Andrews, and it was that 3-3 where Jacob Murphy missed from the halfway line, ran through clean from the halfway line and missed.
Yeah.
He looks okay in that game. Would I have gone on to say that he would be the world-class player that he is now and arguably a Ballon d'Or candidate? No, of course not. And Adam Wharton has stepped into Palace, and if anybody has watched any of Palace over the back end of it since they've ousted Roy Hodgson, he looks different class. Like, everybody is raving about Kobbie Mainoo, and I get it because he's at Manchester United, and also, he had 2 weeks work experience at Wednesday. But he is world class. Like, you watch him and you just think, how on earth did you not get picked up by a better club, like coming out of like an academy side?
Yeah.
How on earth did you end up at Blackburn?
I know.
Because honestly, when I've watched him for Palace, I'm just thinking, he's come in, and surely anybody with some logic would have gone, they've spent 19 million on him, they'll just loan him back. And they didn't. They chucked him straight in, and he's made an England squad. 12 months ago, he was just broken into Blackburn's first team. He's crackers.
He's mental. I mean, I will just read out the midfielders: Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jude Bellingham.
He's not a midfielder.
Conor Gallagher, Kobbie Mainoo, Declan Rice, and as you just mentioned, Adam Wharton as well. Again, not a lot of experience in that midfield. Adam Wharton made his debut this month. Kobbie Mainoo made his debut in March. Conor Gallagher did go to Qatar, but was an unused sub. So, and again, I don't know how much he's going to be used this time in the Euros. And it's mad as well how you look at Jude Bellingham, who you feel like he's been here forever already, but he's still what? How old is he? He's
21.
20. He's 20 years old. He's going to be 21 at the end of this month. Which is absolutely crackers when you look, and he's already made 29 appearances and made his debut in 2020 as well as a 17-year-old.
Just mental.
I mean, he is one of the players that I am extremely excited to see what he can do. Watched him in the Champions League final, which wasn't fantastic in terms. It was a little bit cagey at times, but just when you see him and how much everyone looks up to him already, so at such a young age, and he seems to take all that pressure and he kind of thrives on it. Really, he doesn't look fazed, does he? You see him in the post-match press conferences. The English TV always go to him and want to speak to him, and it's like he's been doing it for. Well, he has been doing it all his life, but he's like a veteran already.
Yeah. He doesn't strike you as a 20-year-old kid, does he, at all? Side note here about Jude Bellingham. So the bloke who cuts Jude Bellingham's hair is also the bloke who does a lot of the Wednesday stuff as well. So it's a bloke from Birmingham. Marvin Johnson, I think, was the one who put him in contact with a load of people at Wednesday. So George Byers, when he was here, Marvin Johnson, Dominic Iorfa, Anthony Masaba, all of them this year. He goes up to the training ground quite regularly. Like once a month, they pay for him to go up there, and he'll spend like a couple of hours up there. He goes to my gym. So I've had a couple of. I noticed he'd posted it on his Instagram of like going into Chef Wednesday's training ground, and I was like, this is bizarre. So yeah, I've chatted to him a couple of times, but he still does Jude Bellingham's hair once a week. So he flies out to Madrid and does it
once a week.
Yeah, once a week. So Bellingham has been back in Birmingham yesterday and today. And this gives you an idea of the man who he is and kind of like how grounded he is, because you see him in interviews, and I saw after the Champions League final there was a lot of stuff online basically saying, trying to force tears, we need to drop all of this good guy act and stuff like that. He went and visited the shop, didn't ask for it to be closed down. Bear in mind, this is one of the best midfielders on the planet. Didn't ask for it to be closed down, didn't ask for it to any special treatment. Literally walked in, sat in a chair and waited for a haircut from a barber. And there was people in there, it went absolutely ballistic, and there were people turned up left, right and said, this are tiny barbers in the middle of a council estate. But it was absolutely ballistic. But it was one of those things where I just think that gives you kind of like a mark of who he is as a person, in terms of he's not too big time, and I think that's why so many people are so invested in him as well.
Matt, have you got this barber's number? Because I feel like I could need him. You know what I mean?
So for those of you who are interested, it's New Era Barbers on Instagram. It's just I just thought it was a really interesting point in terms of like there is a Wednesday connection there as well, because he spoke a lot about kind of like the squad harmony, especially over the League One campaign, and talked about, like he'd go into the change room and it was just a laugh. Like he would just talk about like everybody's just constantly laughing. He said when I've spoken to him about the back end of the season where it was a bit busier, he only got called up for the Sky Games this year. But he'd say, yeah, it's still, it's still a really, really lively dressing room, and it's still really, really friendly, which was kind of like I was kind of thinking, actually, it is quite good to hear that it's not like everybody's, we're sitting there 23rd and everybody's fucking miserable 24/7.
Do you know what? It's probably, it isn't the reason, but one of the reasons why we stayed up.
Massively.
All the other teams around us were panicking. Managers were getting sacked left, right and centre. They were, they were, I said, panicking, thinking they would get relegated. We were just like, well, we've been here all season. We know what we're doing. We're on, Danny was probably telling them, we're on target. We're still on target for getting out. Come the end of the season, there's still enough points left to pick up. We're going to be fine. And yeah, clearly that that togetherness kind of pulled us through in the end.
My apologies for taking us off on Jude Bellingham's midfield Euro announcement. Sheffield Wednesday survival and haircuts.
It's tangents.
It's off season, innit? It's off season, innit?
We love the tangents. It's what we're here for, innit? Really. You mentioned Kobbie Mainoo and Adam Wharton. Well, I mean, Declan Rice is another one of his absolute Rolls Royce of a midfielder. Really, he's gone to Arsenal and just kind of carried on where he left off at West Ham, hasn't he, really, and adding goals to his game as well, just which is good to see. Clearly, by the lack of midfielders that we've got, it is very top heavy, as you've mentioned. In terms of forwards, Jared Bowen, Eberici Eze, Phil Foden, Anthony Gordon, Harry Kane, Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins. I mean, we're talking about there's not much talent in the goalkeeping ranks, but in terms of the forward line, like you could pick any of them really, and it would be a formidable force, wouldn't it? To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Kane is one of, if not the most formidable number 9 in world football, which is, I mean, aside from Kylian Mbappe and Haaland, I mean, his numbers are up there with them. Like you can't dispute, and he scores all type of goals. After that, I think it becomes a bit more of a toss-up of who you play for me personally. I know Phil Foden has got a hell of a lot of accolades this year, and he's rightly performed really, really well in a Manchester City team that is completely built and geared towards him being very successful. I personally am not of the opinion that he walks into this England team and starts. I'm very much more on the Cole Palmer train in terms of that is a player who is a match winner. that is a player who can take a game by the scruff of the neck and win it on his own. He's had to do that with Chelsea this season, to drag them by the bootstraps, kicking and screaming to the position that they finished in. Phil Foden is if you want to see it this way, Phil Foden is the cherry on top of a cake. Cole Palmer is the cake rather than anything else. Like, he has to be everything else because the team that he plays for is so poor. I'm not fully bought into Phil Foden yet. I think in the bigger and the larger games where there is real pressure on them, I think he goes a little bit missing. And I think also stature-wise, I think he's a little lightweight for international football.
Yeah. It's you look at the goals though. 19 goals for Phil Foden, 20-odd goals for Cole Palmer. Yes, I know a lot have come from the spot, but you've still got to put him away. Is my answer to that one. Bukayo Saka, I think he's 16, 17 goals in the Premier League last season as well. There's so many goals in a top class league. I think you're right when you say about he can go a little bit missing for England. I mean, he's only scored 4 goals in an England shirt at 34 attempts. I don't know how many of those were starts and how many have come off the bench. I'll tell you now. He started 23 times, and again, like I said, only scored 4 goals, which is it's not really a good enough return, is it, for someone who scores so many goals for Manchester City? For me, there's some players on there. When you look, Phil Foden, like I said, Harry Kane, Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka. Any of those could start for me, and I'll be happy. I mean, I'd like to see the likes of Eze at some point, see what he could do, because he's really shot up. And if you ever put a goal scoring accumulator on a weekend, put Eze on your slip, because he'll probably help you out more times than he won't.
Yeah, I mean, he is a footballer who I think has, alongside him and Cole Palmer, are players who have a little bit of like magic in their feet. They're the type of players who bringing this back to Wednesday, they are the Jan Paveda of the England squad in terms of you have no idea what you're going to get, and they excite you and you want to watch them. I mean, Eze in the first warm-up game, I know it wasn't a sparkling first half from England, but some of the touches and some of the way in which that he beats players and tries to link up play is an absolute joy to watch. Like it's like watching seven-a-side football with him with the ball at his feet. Yeah. Same with Cole Palmer. I really don't want it to sound like I am battering Phil Foden with a stick here. Technically, he's a brilliant player, like arguably the best technical player that we have in the side. I just think that there are more productive options for England because the squad is not built for him. The squad is built for Harry Kane to score goals. That is who this squad is built for. It is not built for our attacking midfielder to have loads of creative freedom, which is why I think you'll probably see Jude Bellingham play a little bit deeper for England than he has been doing for Real Madrid. I think you'll probably get what Jude Bellingham is going to be for Real Madrid next year, in terms of for Jude Bellingham next year for Madrid will have to drop back because of Mbappe playing central. Yeah, I think if you're playing Bellingham, Palmer, they're probably two of the similar player. You have to probably play Saka. I mean, I would also start Anthony Gordon as well because he is terrifyingly direct. He is so direct in his running and was the only bright spark from a very, very dull game of football on Friday.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't watch that game, to be fair, Matt.
It's cold.
Yeah, I mean, I had it on. I was doing the live stream, playing Football Manager on Friday, trying to do better than Cisco, which I'll tell you, I succeeded in the first game of the season with a 1-0 win against Southampton, which was delightful.
Did you have more than 20% possession?
I think I can't remember what it was, but it was about 40-45% possession.
It's easy, isn't it? Easy, this game. Management.
Yeah, I started on the My World setting, so that's kind of like basically the squad just after the Barnsley game. So all the players that had left had gone, and all the players that we'd signed aren't there. So if you start on the normal setting, it's weird because you start with James Beadle and Ikopo because it's like the January database. So yeah, I did sign Jan Paveda though on loan, and he scored in that game and won us the game. So it was great, and I think I've unbeaten in 4, and wheels fell off a little bit I'm not going to lie. Lost to Cardiff, lost to Leeds as well, and Sunderland I think I lost to. So yeah, 3 straight defeats wasn't fantastic. So I thought
I only did 1 point better than you there, didn't I?
Yeah, I thought for a minute I were going to get the call up. I beat Southampton, beat Hull, beat Preston. I thought, wait a minute, Danny's going to Chancery's going to be ringing saying. Sack Danny. I've heard you've done wonders with this Wednesday squad, but yeah, no, back to normality quite quickly. I've already asked you kind of how far we'll go. You think we're going to get to the semis? Yeah, for me, it's always difficult. I'm very pessimistic as an England fan. I just feel like we always seem to mess it up at some stage. Yeah. I just can't shake that. But then again, I just look at it and think if there's a time or a chance that we're going to have to win a major tournament, like we could probably say it every single time, but this has got to be it. Like, will we get another time when we've got so many attacking players? In form as well. People are probably saying, yeah, in 2 years' time when we have the World Cup. But do you know what I mean? Like now is the time to win it. Mainly because, yeah, you've mentioned France, but all the other nations don't. They seem to be in like the transition periods at the moment.
Mm. Yeah, I think again, I would say Portugal aside. I mean, Portugal's side is terrifying. Like their side. I mean, even you can even remove Ronaldo. That side is petrifying from top to bottom. Even with Pepe at 41 playing centre half, because he will play and he will shit out everybody on the pitch, and he still probably will score a header at some point as well. The thing that really puzzles me about England, I'm talking like I'm not English here, but yeah, I just can't believe for a side that haven't won anything apart from Le Tournoi since '66. We seem to go into every single tournament. There is a certain aspect of the English supporting kind of like fan base that goes into a tournament expecting to win things. And yeah. I always sit there with it and kind of like fit with yourself and go, I don't see how it's going to happen. There's always going to be something, and that's very, it's quite comforting really in the sense of it's very Wednesday as well. Is this doesn't, the last tournament at the Euros, it seemed destined and written in the stars that it was going to be England who won it. Finals at Wembley, get there, go 1-0 up inside of 3 minutes, and then the side who you're playing ultimately is just. I would argue Italy over the course of the 120 minutes were probably shaded it in terms of the side. England got very nervy, and then when it comes down to penalties, I mean. I just have zero faith and confidence. I know that we have won penalty shootouts recently. That when it comes to those really big pressure moments, that another side isn't going to be more experienced in that setting.
I just want us to go for it though. I just want us to have a real good go. Let the handbrake off. I feel like the handbrake has been on ever since Southgate's been here. There's clearly some very, very, very talented players, and I feel like they never. Whether that's themselves trying to playing within themselves to not fuck up on the big stage, or whether that's a directive from Southgate, I feel like we just need to take them shackles off and just let them play. And because I think at least we might not win the tournament, but if we're playing some fantastic football and it's just unlucky that we've not won, then. Whatever, nobody can have any complaints if we don't get there and we've literally just tried to strangle the life out of a game and passing backwards, sideways, and not just probing but not really trying anything. Then everyone will just go, well, that were just predictable and boring again. Obviously, a lot of people saying it's Southgate's last tournament as well, aren't they? So.
Yeah, I mean, the question that I had on that, because I was getting into a discussion on sort of like my WhatsApp group about that, and was basically saying, well, who'd you get in after Southgate? Because it's not going to be like Pep. He's too much of a football sicko to want to do anything to do with international football unless it's something to do with Barcelona receiving its own independent nation status. That would make it, that would be proper Pep bearded football hipster kind of like vibe. It ain't going to be Klopp. Like, it's not going to be that type of a manager. So who do you have? Like, ideally, if this was a club side, you'd be thinking, right, who have we got in the ranks? Who's a really exciting upcoming coach? But if you went out and appointed the under-21s manager currently, it'd all be really underwhelming, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the idea of go on.
Yeah, I think the former Chelsea boss Graham Potter has been linked, hasn't he? But again, I'm like, he faltered a little bit. Well, a lot really at Chelsea. Did great with Brighton, but not been in work, has he, since he's gone? I mean, it seems only 2 minutes ago that he did go, but when was that? April. I mean, I was reading that April 2023 when he left Chelsea. But then again, Southgate didn't do a great deal with in his club career either. So I suppose. A top club manager doesn't always make a fantastic international manager. So yeah,
not at all. No, not at all. The only other manager who I was thinking who is currently just recently been relieved of his duties is Pochettino. He would be the only manager who, I mean, his stock has definitely risen, I think, since the back end and the way Chelsea finished the season. Because, I mean, Chelsea finished the season strongly. I know their league position didn't necessarily do them any justice, but they did finish the season playing a lot better football, and he'd managed a really difficult situation there. He would be the only international football manager who's out there currently, who's a big name, high profile manager who I'd look at and think, do you know what? One-off games, he could come in and get something. Like everybody else who I look at, I think I'd rather just have somebody who's going to be in the setup and who's going to build on all of that good work that Southgate's done now. Does that mean that it's going to be anybody who comes in and, as you say, I would love to see them go full out, yeah, you know what, screw it, we're just going to chuck on Harry Kane, we'll have Foden, we'll have Cole Palmer sitting in a 10, we'll have Foden one wing, we'll have Bukayo Saka on another, we'll push Bellingham forward, we'll see if we can fit Eze in alongside him, Rice you can hold 3 at the back and just kind of go for it. But it ain't going to happen because, I mean, realistically, our strength for England, I don't know how you feel about this, surely would be playing at the tempo that a Premier League game is played and forcing an opposition to play at that pace because they would not want that opposition, the opposition would not want to play at that pace. The problem is you're never going to do that at international football.
Yeah.
Like never, because it's not that type of game.
Just kind of break the mould a little bit and do something a bit different that we haven't seen. I mean, it's always difficult, we're asking these players that play club football and train day in, day out to then all of a sudden meet up with each other and start playing this scintillating football. It's probably a lot easier for another nation that's, a Serbia or someone like that aren't really expected to do a great deal and do a lot of attacking. And, it's probably arguably easier to defend than try and play this, lovely football. There's not as much pressure on him, if you know what I mean. Whereas there's a hell of a lot of pressure on England to perform, and unfortunately, just not really hit them heights. But maybe this is going to be the tournament that we can do it. Before we wrap up and move over to extra time, and we're going to be talking about quite a wider issue, but is football broken? That's what we're going to be talking about over there. So if you want to listen to that one, head over to patreon.com/WTID pod. But yeah, the odds for the Euros, according to Sky Bet, as of a couple of days ago when I had a look, Italy are 14-1, Spain at 8-1, as are Portugal as well, Germany 9-2, France, your favourites, are 4-1, and England are the favourites, according to Sky Bet, at 3-1. Which
4-1 is printing money. 4-1 is printing money. Absolutely printing money. Chuck your mortgage on.
Gambleaware.com.
Please don't do that. Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah. That's the odds. 3-1 for England to win it. If we do, yeah, I hope we do it. Of course, I will be watching pretty much every single game if I can. If it's not on the telly, it'll be on the iPad with one earphone in, just kind of keeping abreast on everything that's going on.
It's much harder to do it in a lesson. But
just get it on the screen. Just get it on the big screen.
I can assure you that is exactly what is going to happen. It is going to be me at the start of every lesson going, right, we're all going to enter into this. That's going to be on there. I will give you 10 minutes. As long as the work is finished, you can ensure that you can watch this, but we are going to make sure that any work comes in. If anybody asks any questions, no, you did not watch it. Let's move along.
Yeah, you need them. I've seen it before. We have the screens that from one side it looks like it's watching something, and then the other side it's something totally different. That's what we need. Other than the fact that you'll have all the kids on one side of your classroom and nobody on the other, might be a bit of a giveaway, to be fair.
Some of my best memories of school, that being crammed into a school hall, watching the 2002 World Cup and watching Ronaldinho lob David Seaman, the best keeper England's ever seen.
I think every child of our age or similar age has exactly the same experience. What was it? Was it a really early kickoff? Was it
8 o'clock in the morning, something like that?
Yeah, like I can remember sat in the hall. I was like front row or 2 rows back, and they had it on a projector, which was probably like the quality of it was like it took on a Nokia 3310, and they don't even have camera phones.
Just like a big TV now.
Yes, yeah, and I can remember sat watching it, and it ruined that day. Absolutely ruined that day. Everyone had come in with England kits on, and there were about 40 million footballs being kicked around, but that was the kind of vision that everyone had, and then nobody were asked. Like, they lost, and nobody wanted to do anything that day. It was awful. I still have nightmares about that goal. Like, he'd never meant that, did he? Surely.
I tell you what, after watching his footballing career, I'm not putting it past him. The rest of his career was some horrendously audacious stuff, so I'm not going to chuck it past him that he didn't mean to lob a keeper from 30 odd yards.
The one I love is he's playing for Barcelona, and it's a goal kick, and you see him the best camera angle is like kind of from behind the goal, so you see the ball go up, and you just see him just run. And he's not even looking at where the ball is. He just runs, and the ball hits him on his back, and just gets deflected off to one of their strikers or a midfielder. And I'm like, how has he even done that? Like, it's such a simple thing. But one, how has he done it? Two, at what point do you think, you know what, I'm just going to let this hit my back and just deflect off? It could have just controlled it, headed it like any normal person. But no, he decided to do that.
Planet. Absolute different planet.
Absolutely class. Right, let's wrap things up. Also, just a quick plug for all the merchandise as well. The mug, the Danny Rail mug that I put out the other day, has been absolutely flying out, by the way. So head over to wtidpod.myshopify.com and get one of those. I want to see loads of pictures of you with them mugs. If you did pick one up the other day, it'll probably be with you hopefully today, if you listen to this on Monday, or certainly early this week. So yeah, do head over and have a look. Use the code free shipping as well. Just nobody told you that one, or maybe free delivery. I think the code is not free shipping. Try both of them.
Don't use free shipping. Use free delivery.
They might both. To be fair, I think they might both work, but you get the same thing anyway. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, for watching, if you've been watching on YouTube, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers, guys.